Kevin Hine, thank you for coming on. Here we go with Chris Cox. I appreciate you. So, Kevin,
Yeah,
you're a mental health advocate. You have a film called Suicide: The Ripple Effect, a book called The Art of Wellness, and you have a pretty incredible story. I've seen a lot of your stuff online and been following you for a while. Thanks for coming on.
glad to come on. Nice to
Yeah,
meet you, Chris.
yeah, nice to meet you as well. So, if it's okay with you, I'd like to just kind of start with the story about your I don't know how to word it, but your event that for me, like my big event was my bottom, but you had quite a event where you were going to go to the Golden Gate Bridge, and you did, and you made it through that. Would you mind telling that story just to start?
Of course, I think that, in order to do this story justice, I think we need to go back a little bit further.
I'd love to.
What led to me going to the Golden Gate Bridge to attempt to take my life, and of course, me eventually leaping off and becoming one of less than 1% to survive the fall from the Golden Gate Bridge, essentially. I was born in abject poverty. My brother and I were neglected and abandoned by our birth parents to to their use of drugs and alcohol after we were born. And because of that situation and that initial trauma, my brother and I ended up in foster care. We both got bronchitis in a foster home filled with neglect, and he died right near me.
How old were you when that
And
happened?
I couldn't have been more than a few months old.
Okay.
So, but we know from the connection an infant is supposed to have with their mother that this was not the way to start off in life.
Right.
We know from the study of infant monkeys who were taken from their birth mother that they grow up with something akin to brain damage. And so imagine what humans are experiencing when they're taken from their mother's arms and not reared properly, pardon me. And so I bounced around from home to home in foster care. And unlike my poor brother, I got very, very lucky. A foster family took me in and were the first foster family to properly take care of me. Pardon me, guys. I have a really bad frog in my throat. I'll go back. So my brother dies in foster care. I bounce around to more homes, and I eventually make it into the Hines home. And Patrick and Deborah Hines took me in and made me their son. They gave me hope. They gave me that proverbial light at the end of the tunnel. And going from a very traumatic infancy to a wonderful childhood to an incredible adolescence, playing sports, excelling in sports, being involved uh, thoroughly in the theater company in my high school and my college, and all in all, being an eclectic, you know, yet a bit of an eccentric kid. And all of that was going great until at 17 and a half years of age, while on stage in high school, I had a complete mental breakdown in front of 1,200 people. My theater director, Mr. John Fennell, had to go on after intermission and play my role for the rest of the show. He would be, later on, the first person of 22 people in my life that I would lose to suicide. And his suicide, in essence, made suicide an option for me. It was the first time I'd seen anyone I knew have that situation happen to them. It was the first time I understood what suicide was really. And losing him was like losing a part of myself.
And was that shortly after that incident at the
It was
when you were
before.
17?
So this is at 17 years of age.
Okay.
He took his life when I was he took his life after my breakdown. He
Right.
took his life after my breakdown, and on the same year he took his life, I would attempt in the year 2000.
Okay.
And so at 19 years of age, 2 years after being diagnosed with bipolar disorder, after that breakdown on that stage, and then just faltering up and down with psychosis and paranoia and delusions and hallucinations, bipolar type 1 with psychotic features, which I was triply diagnosed with in my life. All of these issues, and I'm sure there were some gut health problems I didn't really know about or understand at the time as we're learning more of that science from folks like Dr. Mark Hyman
Mm-hmm.
and Dr. and all these things. And so, but here I was at 19 having now a complete breakdown again, but with no failsafe. And I was holding in all of the struggles I was having from my birth parents, or from my adopted parents, from my family, from my friends. I got so good at silencing my pain, my brain pain, that I didn't tell anyone what was really going on. And at 19, I made my way out to the Golden Gate Bridge. I hoped, wished, and prayed someone would stop me. Ultimately, a woman approached and asked me to take her picture several times. At that moment, I thought nobody cares. The furthest thing from the truth. And I leapt off the Golden Gate Bridge. And it was the single worst action I'd ever taken in my life up until that point. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. Just so you know, on a side note, this is an actual health issue. My esophagus is a little damaged from, well, they're not sure what, but I'm dealing with it right now, and I
It's
sincerely
all good.
apologize.
No, it's all good.
Pardon me. Not good for a public speaker.
It's all good. It's all good.
So, so the moment my hands left the rail, though, Chris, I had an instant regret for my actions and the absolute recognition that I just made the greatest mistake of my life and thinking it was too late. And for 99.9% of the people that have done what I did, it's been too late. So I always say that I get to be here.
Mm-hmm.
I get to be here. It's a gift to exist. Every one of us had a 1 in 400 trillionth of a chance to be birthed into this world. A 1 in 400 trillionth of a chance to simply exist. That means we're meant to be here until our natural end is never to die by our hands. So for me now, after going through that, suicide is not, will not, and cannot ever be an option. But I still have these thoughts.
Right.
Every time I have these thoughts, I do two things. I have a two-pronged technique to never again attempt or die by suicide. Number one, when I have those ideations, I find a mirror, anywhere. I look into it and I say, my thoughts do not have to become my actions. They can simply be my thoughts if they're dangerous to myself or others. And number two, and the most important part of that two-pronged method, is I turn to anyone willing to hear me. And I say four simple but very effective words. I need help now. The
Right.
difference, the difference between me and people who attempt to die by suicide, I don't stop saying I need help now until one person's willing to answer the call. And for 25 years of living with these thoughts, I've never attempted again.
It's beautiful.
And that can be taught, it can be learned, and it can be used for millions to never attempt in the first place.
I love it.
And I teach it all around the world. And that's where my book, The Art of Wellness, How to Find, Live, and Stay Mentally Fit, comes into play because it just came out. It's being used in high schools, colleges, military bases, law enforcement offices, and all around the world in other areas. We are developing an app to go along with the book to be a wellness tracker, a brain health tracker. I'm moving away from the language of mental health. Who wants to be called mental? Ask anybody.
Right.
Nobody wants to be called mental. Your brain is in trouble. Your brain is an organ, just like every other organ in the body, and it too can become diseased. Usually it has something to do with the connection to your gut health, and your gut to brain health connection is so very important to understand, to educate yourself about, and to become completely aware of. So you know what you're putting into your body, into your gut, absolutely affects your brain and your mind. You know, your gut microbiome houses and creates all of your body's serotonin and dopamine, affecting your mental well-being. And I'm sure that played a huge role before my attempt off the Golden Gate Bridge, if I can really look back in hindsight.
Yeah. So backing up a little bit, you got adopted. It sounds like into a family that really cared and loved you, and you got into a
Yeah.
lot of fun, neat things. Growing up, do you remember feeling unhappy, or did it kind of just start happening at that 16, 17-year-old mark? Was it like what are your memories of childhood? Do you remember struggling with this stuff, or did it just pop up as you got into your teens?
So it was always hidden. It was always there. And nobody really saw it because I didn't understand it and I didn't understand how to express it. So for example, as a fourth grader, I hallucinated on a regular basis, but I didn't know what that was. I was a child.
Yeah.
I would see I would see demons and dark figures, and I would hear voices talking to me, but I couldn't really understand what they were saying. They were just horrible, but I didn't tell anybody. I was heavily bullied in all of grade school from kindergarten through seventh grade when I left that school and went to a more tolerating school. In the school I was being bullied in, I was the only part black kid in the school, and they made it known. They made me vividly aware that I did not look like them, and they tormented me. They beat me. It was awful, and I dealt with it. But it did leave its mark, and the damage they did on my psyche played a pivotal role in me leaping off that bridge at 19.
Yeah.
The lack of self-worth, the self-hate, the self-loathing I developed increased because of the bullies' aggression toward me. The names they called me, the derogatory things they said about me and to me, the way they pushed me around. And I was a tiny kid back then. I had no way of defending myself. And oftentimes these were eighth graders attacking me, a fourth grader. It was vicious, and they had no right. And I left that school, went to a predominantly black school for my eighth grade year, where I was immediately accepted as is day one. And they treated me like a brother. And it was incredible. And so that kind of evened things out for a bit. Fast forward, I get into high school. I have a initial bad scenario occur where because I'm mixed race, no table of students would accept me at the school I was going to. So you had, and I'm being very frank here,
Yeah,
Chris.
it's fine.
You had, there was the black table. I went and tried to sit down, like get the hell out of here. There was the Asian table, get the hell out of here. There was for black, there was a white table. They said, not here, buddy. And then there was a misfits table filled with the math nerds and the kind of the geeky kids who love comic books, and I love
Yeah.
comic books, so I felt right at home. That's where I found my place. And then, of course, I found theater with Mr. John Fennell, theater director. And then I found wrestling and football. I became a WCAL wrestling champion. I think that's why my neck is so big.
You look like
And
a
I ended up,
wrestler. So,
yeah,
yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
I did well in wrestling, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I was successful at it. It was the one sport I was really successful at. Football I loved, but I wasn't the best football player. But you know, all of these things are going on, and I'm growing up, and then it hits me that breakdown into mental instability, psychosis, and paranoia and hallucinations, and then it leads me at 19 to leap off the Golden Gate Bridge. And the most beautiful moment of that horrific scenario is that something wasn't letting me die that day. And I have to give it up to God. I believe God saved my life that day. I hit that water at 15,000 pounds of pressure. That's like a giant
Wow.
African elephant standing on your chest. Who survives that? I made my way to the surface after going 50 feet beneath the water's surface. I opened my eyes and I prayed to God that I would live. And at that moment, The moment I went back down and I thought I was going to drown, something pushes me up to the surface, circling beneath me, not letting me drown. And I think it's a nice shark. And it turns out, after years of not knowing, a man named Morgan would reach out to me and show me pictures that it was, in fact, a sea lion, keep me afloat until the Coast Guard boat arrived behind me.
Oh, wow.
The Coast Guard secondarily saved my life. The sea lion, this creature that doesn't speak my language, saved my life. It was incredible. And I've affectionately named him Herbert, by the way.
So were those actual pictures of the incident? And
Yeah, no, he was on the bridge that day with his mom. He was from Las Vegas,
oh,
Nevada,
wow.
and he took pictures of the event. And he he when the sad part is my father got the email with the picture, and my father was not prepared to see the picture when he
Yeah.
opened it. And I remember he opened it up on his computer, and it was back when the email would pop out full screen, and it popped out full screen, and there is what looks like my lifeless body atop the waters of the Golden Gate Bridge. And as you go through the pictures, you see the sea lion circling. It was incredible. Now, I went back to the Golden Gate Bridge a year to the date of my attempt with my father. So 2001, September 24th, 2001. I go back there, and my dad says to me, Kevin, we need closure. And I'm having vertigo on this bridge. I'm not having it. I'm getting nauseous. I'm now, I now have this fear of heights. I'm like, I don't want to do this, Dad. We need closure. So we go out. He says, Kevin, show me the exact light rail. And I had never forgot it. I brought him to the exact light rail. And my dad, we had picked a flower from a flower bed earlier. I never forget. It was a purple tulip with gold pollen inside, the kind you would see a bee pollinating after. And we go to that area, and my father grabs my left hand in his right. We say an Our Father and a Hail Mary, and he says, Kevin, drop the flower. And I reached out over the rail, and I dropped the flower, and it wafted down very slowly, hit the waters below the bridge eventually, and not 2 feet to the right popped up a sea lion.
Oh, wow.
And it was arguably the most beautiful moment I've ever shared with my dad, Pat Hines. Love you, Dad. In my entire life, next to him being the best man at my wedding, and there was no other choice.
That's a beautiful story. Wow. So before this happened, Kevin, you were diagnosed, right, with bipolar and schizophrenia or bipolar? What was your
Bipolar type 1 with psychotic
with
features.
psychotic features? And had you tried to get help from that before? Did they give you medication that wasn't working
Yeah,
or?
from 17 to 19, my family did everything they could to help me heal. The problem was I was a kid. Do you think I was accurately taking my medication?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was a mess. I was taking my medication one day, not the next. 7 days or not for 7 days, or well, binge drinking until blackout on the weekends while on psychotropic meds, which could have really damaged me. But I wasn't trying to get a high or feel a buzz. I was trying to stop the voices in my head,
Right.
you know? And so at 19, it was the last straw. And the voices in my head told me I had to die, and I listened to them. The voices would win the day. And so I guess what I want to say to anyone listening who has that negative inner critical voice, or frankly, auditory hallucinations that are aggressive, self harm related, or violent, or suicidal, stop. Stop. Take a breath. In 4 seconds through your nose, hold 4 seconds, release 6 to 8 seconds, purse lips like a whistle but no sound. Do that 40 more times. Let your brain and your mind and your body come to a calm. Quell a panic attack, stop an anxiety attack, stop a panic attack. Just breathe. There's something to be said about just breathing. They say that 88% of human beings across the world are not breathing properly. And it affects your brain, it affects the way you think, it affects your actions. So breathe. Take a moment and understand this. We're all going to die someday. None of us have cracked the code to immortality. Give yourself time, energy, effort, and hard work for things to change. Don't take your life because you believe life is not worth living. Make a life worth living. And if you are stuck in an abusive or neglectful relationship of any kind, do everything you can to get out of that relationship. Get the help you so deserve and so desire. Come out on the other side because nothing and no one is ever irredeemable from brain pain. You can heal, you can find recovery, you can find wellness, and you can thrive, but only if you believe.
Absolutely. So it's interesting you say that about breath, and box breathing, or the kind of breath that you described is so important. Like for me personally, like when things
Yeah,
start getting out of hand, it's just okay. Take a minute, breathe in four, hold four, out four, and then hold four. Like that's what I do, and it's like it's an amazing tool to calm me down. And I love that you brought that back up. So after the event, you had some injuries, and then kind of what was it like to kind of get on your road to recovery and on your road to where you are now? What was that first like year like until you got to that story with your dad? Like what what
sure.
happened?
So, here I was in a physical hospital after my attempt, in a wheelchair, after my 10 and a half hour back surgery to replace my shattered vertebrae with titanium. I had shattered my T12, L1, L2. I had missed severing my spinal cord by 2 millimeters. They replaced my shattered vertebrae with titanium. And I went from a wheelchair to a walker and a back brace to a back brace and a cane. And then right into my first psych ward. A month and a half in the psych ward. And then I ended up, doing a lot of physical therapy every week, uh, and re reworking and finding ways to move my body like I used to. I have since fully physically recovered. I lift weights. I run. I swim. Um, I have almost full range of mobility past a certain amount of torque and turning. Um, the one issue is at any moment of intense movement, I can be back to walking with my cane.
Hmm.
So I've had several occasions where I'm in the middle of, I've had an occasion where I was picking up a sock, threw my back out, and I couldn't stand up straight or walk properly. I have to walk with my cane. And so I have to be very careful with the movement I do take and very deliberate with how I move around.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's been my main recovery task over all these years. And the second, I guess there is another constant, and that constant that is always with me when from the moment I wake up to for well, frankly, every moment of every day, even when I'm asleep, is chronic physical pain. And that physical pain can sometimes be relentless, but that's okay. I get to be here.
Yeah.
I look at that pain as a gift because it's all about perspective.
Yeah.
I get to experience that pain because I'm alive to feel it.
Right.
And every single moment in your life can be looked at by a certain perspective or another. The pain you go through, the struggles you experience, the arduous times you live through, you can pity yourself, you can self-loathe, you can self-hate, you can blame others, or you can choose to say, this is happening for me, not to me.
Hmm.
Arnold Schwarzenegger said pretty recently, and I'm sure he wasn't the first guy to say it, but he said, it's not about what happens to you, it's about how you react to what happens to you.
Absolutely.
So, you know, the other part about it is our emotions rule the day, right? If you can control your emotions, Dan Martell talks about this all the time. He's a good friend of mine. If you can control your emotions, no matter what anybody else is spitting at you, you're in complete control of your life. I used to be the guy that let my symptoms and my emotions lead me through life. Now I
What?
don't step forward until I need to.
Yeah. What kind? So like, you're in the hospital going through physical therapy, go to a psych ward. And you have such a great attitude right now and a great perspective on life. Was it immediately like that, or did you have to work through some stuff? Did you have a mentor that helped you through some stuff? Like, how did that work? Did that one moment just completely change you immediately, or was there a process to that the first year? Or
You know, I I'm a pretty resilient guy. I've been dealing with hardship forever, since day one. And something in me, when I survived that, when I came out of the surgery okay, when I saw my family's reaction saying, we would have been there for you, when all of my friends wrote me letters saying, why didn't you call me? When the whole community gathered around me and had prayers said for me at masses all across my city, I realized my true purpose. When two clergymen came to me, a Franciscan friar and a priest, and two different times said, you need to talk about this, you can save lives. And then I started talking about it, and the first thing that occurred was I got 120 letters from the first speech I ever gave from the 120 kids that were there, and six of them were actively suicidal. We caught that in the letters. They were
wow,
given the mental health care they needed. They're alive today. Two of them are therapists. When you know so deeply as I do that your words and your actions have impact and hold weight forever to the people who surround you, then you can be resilient in the face of any pain you see. When you have the utmost belief in yourself, no matter who doesn't believe in you, that's when you've truly won.
that's neat. So tell me about that. Like, this event happens. You have these two priests tell you need to talk about this. Tell me about the first time. How did that happen? Where you said, okay, I'm going to get up in front of some people, and it was kids. So was it a school? Like, tell me about the first time you
Yeah.
got up and spoke.
It was that school that I grew up in where the kids treated me terribly
Where
and
you got
and
bullied.
and
Okay.
where I got bullied. And Father Harriman asked me to come tell my story. And I remember I said, Father, I don't have a speech and I wouldn't know what to say. And my dad shoved me forward on the church steps and said, he'll do it. I said, Dad, what are you doing? He said, you'll do it. We need closure, him and his closure, you
Yeah.
know? And so there I go on Good Friday to the Catholic school I grew up in. 120 Catholic school kids sitting cross-legged on the floor in front of me in the rectory. And I deliver a speech I wrote the night before till 3 in the morning, not very
Nice.
mentally healthy.
Yeah.
And I'm dropping page by page to the floor as I'm reading it from the page, barely looking up. And the lip of my back brace is leaning on a table behind me so I can barely stand. I'm holding my cane in my right hand. 7 months after my attempt, okay?
Oh, so this was pretty
And I,
quick after. You're still healing, and you're still
after,
got
right after,
a
my
cane and
dad
all that
wanted me to
stuff.
heal. My dad was
Yeah.
like, you need to heal. And here I am thinking to myself as I'm reading this speech, who is this helping? What am I doing? And why am I here? What a waste of their time and mine. I drop the final page to the floor. I'm crying my eyes out. I'm shaking. It's so raw. 8 hands immediately go up.
Oh wow.
And I go, did I make an impact? The first kid asked the most inappropriate question you could possibly imagine. I'm not going to repeat it here. The nun goes, don't answer that. I was like, I wasn't going to.
You're welcome to repeat it here if you want to.
I'm good. I'm good. The next 7 questions were intuitive, empowering, moving, kind, compassionate, empathetic. They were incredible. And then those 120 letters I got in return, and the 6 kids that were actively suicidal that we stopped, and the knowledge that words hold weight, and can change the course of a life. And then I over time, as I went from one speech in one year to 345 speeches in 2018 in one year, and now we do about anywhere between 180 to 250 a year. Traveling around the world sharing stories, I would learn through the neuroplasticity of the brain and understanding it that stories are 22 times more memorable than statistics or facts. I
Mm-hmm.
would go on to have my keynote presentations qualitatively and quantitatively analyzed, peer reviewed, and proven to save lives, increase help seeking behavior, and increase reach outs to crisis or text lifelines. I would go on to also have my, this happened this year, to have my social media model quantitatively and qualitatively proven to save lives, increase helping and seeking behaviors, and reach out to crisis text and lifelines. And what we're doing with that right now is we are using it as a type of a university to teach social media influencers, micro, macro to major social media influencers, to use their social media to save lives.
Yeah.
So we can have this massive ripple effect around the world of media for good. There's far too much spiteful, hateful, rageful, angry, violent media in the world. We only want to create media that does positive things for good people and for
Yeah.
people in pain.
Yeah. Not only that, a lot of social media today like puts an act on. They're this, they're that, and people, I know like a lot of the kids and wives and husbands, including myself. You look at everybody's social media, and it's like, oh, why am I not like that? Why don't I feel like that? Because it's
Comparison is the thief of
yeah,
joy. It's one of
yeah.
the oldest statements in the
Comparing
world.
comparing my insides to other people's outsides, and so
Yeah, it's
yeah,
nonsense.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you've started this movement, right? And you speak. You said 145 times a year, something like that.
Anywhere between 180 to 300 times a year.
Yeah. And is it mostly to schools or is it mostly like,
It varies. It's to groups of all kinds. Anywhere from we spend a lot of time at military bases, veterans associations, law enforcement offices, the FBI, the CIA. We spend time with high schools, grade schools, middle schools, major universities, community colleges. We spend time with organizations of all walks, folks with all walks of life, every type of mental health or brain health organization, nonprofits of all kinds. We do walks for suicide prevention around the country and even around the world. We do a lot of work internationally around the globe. So it just varies. I mean, hospital associations, it really is whoever wants to hear a story of triumph over adversity that covers the bases of all kinds of backgrounds, lifestyles, lived experiences, and come from pain to purpose, pain to power.
yeah. So I have a question just as a parent, being around, having high school age kids and, we've experienced suicide in our community, throughout the years several times. Like what do people like me that are just walking around and have relationships with kids from my kids' friends and knowing teenage kids and me coaching high school football at sometimes like what are things that people can look for, like how do you tell, because remember we had an incident in our community about 3 years ago and nobody had any idea that this kid was going through this, so
Well, it's so hard to have any idea these days because everybody is so uber focused on their device in front of their face. And so people are not emoting like they used to. People's earbuds are in and their AirPods are in and they're not looking at life, the beauty that surrounds us, the trees and hearing the wind blow and seeing the flowers bloom. We're so uber focused on our devices that lead us to these imaginary places that don't really matter. And I think that if you see any child that is distant, reclusive, not talking very much, ask them how they're doing. Ask them what they need, what you could do for them in that moment. In parallel, if you see a kid or any individual of any age with their hands in their head in their hands, or they're crying and they're off to the side, and there's no one around them, Don't just walk by them. Walk up to them and say, "Hey, kid, you're breaking my heart. Are you okay? Is something wrong? Can I help you?" And they may look at you and go, "What do you want? Why do you want to help me? What do you care?" And you go, "Because I'm human and so are you. And that's all that I need." What are you going through? You shouldn't go through it alone. You will never imagine how many worlds that could open for that young person or that adult. You could be the catalyst to saving a life that day. And it's about opening our eyes and looking past our phones when we're so entrenched in the irregularity of the new social norm of this disconnection from human life. Social media, as much as I'm proud of how my model saves lives, social media is the least social thing that has hit the face of this planet in the history of the world.
It's a good way to put it. Yeah.
We need to get people to put their phones in a box and go outside, put their feet to Mother Earth, and have the ion shift their mental health, because that's what happens. The Earth is magnetic creature and electric, and so are we. When we touch it, this is what Aboriginals knew before we did. When we touch Mother Earth for 19 minutes or more, we have a significant brain cell effect on inheriting good mental health in that moment. But who's doing that? Nobody thinks about that. The Aboriginals knew it. They still do it every day, all day long. They're getting that effect every day. We're not, because we're siloed in our device, not looking at the world around us, and we're doing that at the dinner table with the rest of our family.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. What I want to go back to something you kind of brought up a minute ago. I want to explore this a little bit. Gut health having things to do with your mental health and things that people can do to, from your research and your experience, to improve that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very simple. There are two types of food in the world: inflammatory foods, anti inflammatory foods. It's that simple. We have all these categories for food all around the world. Everyone's talking about health, and this is healthy and that's healthy, and this is unhealthy and that's unhealthy. Screw that. Inflammation, anti inflammation. If you eat mostly anti inflammatory foods, most meals, most days, you will feel exponentially better every day. You will look better, you will feel better, you will be better. Now, the problem with that is that we live in America and some places around the world that have their food deserts. People in those food deserts don't have ease of access to anti-inflammatory meals. We need to solve that crisis. We need to solve it fast. We need to offer up food that can save lives, which is what the Maha movement is working on right now, obviously. So, we have an opportunity to shift the culture of food in this country. If we can really do that, we can change the face of brain and mental health across America in general forever, and that would be incredible. The problem with it is chronic disease funds everything. Chronic
Yeah.
disease puts money in people's pockets, and those people should be ashamed of themselves. They should be ashamed of themselves. And so it's a big battle, one that I'm not taking on because I don't have the bandwidth.
Yeah.
But but I do practice anti-inflammatory eating in my home, and it's imperative to me and my mental well-being and my family's mental well-being. So if there comes a time when my wife and I can do something for that cause, we will. I do have an idea for creating brain healthy food that could change lives, but that's down the pipeline.
Love it. So let's talk. I want to ask you a little bit about that because I got to have lunch with your wife and her partner a couple months ago. Tell me about meeting your wife, getting married, what marriage is like, how long you've been married. I always love to
Well,
have these
marriage,
conversations because I think
yeah,
marriage is like in my life is the most important thing for me to honor. And so yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate that you asked that question. Marriage in my life is the greatest gift I've ever received. My wife is the greatest gift I've ever received next to my faith in God. She's my best friend. She's my person. She's the most beautiful thing that's ever happened to me or will ever happen to me in my lifetime. We've had our ups and downs. We've had our broken moments because of my brain disease. But she's had my back from day one. And she met me in a psych ward. How could she not understand? She met me in a
Oh
psych ward.
wow.
She was visiting her cousin. I was there for other reasons. I was one of the patients. And she met me at my lowest moment in life. And after that, when I got out, she accepted me for the person I am, loves me unconditionally, and I can say quite candidly, she's the only person I know who loves me without condition completely.
That's beautiful. But I got to know this, Kevin. You're in a psych ward and she's in there seeing her friend. What did you ask for her number while she was like seeing her? How did that work?
She was in there seeing her cousin,
Uh huh.
and I I got her number and I called her when I got out, and I'll never forget. She answered. She said, "Hi, this is Kevin." I was so excited. I was like, "Hi, this is Kevin," and she goes, "Kevin?" I was like, "Kevin Hines." Pause. From the psych ward, you know. Hi, Kevin. How are you? Hi, Margaret. How are you? I was wondering. It's Friday. I'd like to take you to dinner. Silence. you know. Kevin, I don't. Oh, come on. It's one date. If it goes south, you never have to see me again.
There you go.
You know. We had one date. It was an absolute debacle. I got red sauce all over my shirt. I got lemon juice in her eye. I got burning butter on her chest. It was a mess. It was a nightmare. But she gave me a second date, and the rest is history.
There we go.
And we're making a feature film about it right now. We just finished the screenplay.
Oh, nice. How long you guys been married?
19 years,
Oh, there you go. There you go.
going on forever.
I love it. I love it. So, tell me a little bit about your film that's on your Instagram page. Suicide, the ripple effect.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Suicide: The Ripple Effect is one of our many films. Suicide: The Ripple Effect is, in documentary form, chronicles my life story. We also travel to 6 countries around the world to talk about suicide prevention in the film. We also sit down with 6 Australians who are doing great work in their own way, and who continue to do great work all across Australia and some internationally. And their messages are incredible. It's a beautiful, powerful film filled with hope, love, and light. And thousands of people, of the millions of people who saw it, thousands of people said that it saved their life.
Nice.
So it became this catalyst to changing minds around the world, so people could recognize that suicide wasn't the answer. And it's still being shown around the world, which is great. We've got another film right now that just came out called Stay Alive, which is more of a sit down conversation, almost like an elongated podcast, but in documentary form. And we sat down with the late Dr. Mark Golston, who was one of the leading suicidologists in the world. And we sat down with Reiko, a Japanese pop star who, in her older years, almost lost her life to suicide. Her mom almost died. And so telling her story was incredible. And the film gives you a real defined look into what to do when someone you love is suicidal, what to do when you're suicidal, and what to do when you learn someone struggling, is someone who's struggling mental health crisis or issues. And so the film really breaks down active, real steps to change. So if anybody's looking to host that screening, please reach out to me, because Stay Alive is a movie that will change your mind on suicide. It will lead you to better action to save lives, and it could even save yours.
So, give me the bullet points. What do you do? Like, if I'm talking to somebody and I find out they're suicidal, what are steps that somebody should take? Where do they go with that? What do they do? Because obviously, you've just gotten a person to open up, and you realize that they are suicidal, but you're not a professional. And what do you
Yeah.
do? And I know for us, we're trained to ask if they have a plan and what that plan is, and the more specific they are, the more dangerous it is. Like, so what do you do if you are just a
And
normal person, you come across that?
yeah, let's start there. So if you have the inclination, the thought that someone you know, love, or care about is thinking of suicide, first, as you just mentioned, you say, "Are you thinking of killing yourself?" Then you ask, "Have you made plans to take your life?" Then you ask, "Do you have the means?" After the "Are you thinking of killing yourself?" Remember, it gets a more honest answer than "Are you thinking of suicide?" because the taboo on the word suicide.
Mm-hmm.
It gets an honest answer than anything of self-harm because by definition, self-harm is not suicide, it's self-harm.
Right.
So you ask those three questions, you wait for the answers. And the most important thing you can do in that moment, if it is an acute danger, if they are in acute danger of taking their lives, meaning they have a plan, they have the means, then you need to take further action and get them physically safe from themselves, which often means calling mobile crisis 988, or if necessary, calling 911, or encouraging them kindly to go with you to a hospital and get checked in. Next to that, if they're not in acute danger of taking their lives, if these are just thoughts that haven't led to action or just thoughts that are leading to pain more so, you sit with them. You put your arm around their shoulder. You say, "I've got your back. I'm here to listen to understand, not to respond. I'm not here to fix what you're going through. I'm here to feel it. What do you need from me in this moment? What can I do for you?"
Yeah.
And then stop, and just listen. When they're done talking, don't say anything. Sit in silence for a moment. They will probably keep talking. Oftentimes, people who are suicidal need 24, 70, 48, or 72 hours to come out of it. They just need time. If you can give them your time, you can save their life.
Yeah. Love it.
And then the next step from there, if they weren't so acute, is to get them books on how to survive suicidal thinking, to get them books on whatever brain disease they may be dealing with, to get them books and knowledge and information on the topics that you can have. You can all of this stuff is Googleable. It's all out there.
Mm-hmm.
Get the information they need to build the resilience so they can survive. We've just learned in a big way that resilience is a created tool. We're not born resilient, but we can build resilience over time, and that goes for any human being on the planet. If you can stop your inner critical voice by replacing it with a truthful voice, not a positive voice, a truthful voice, looking in the mirror and reversing your negative inner critical voice plays a pivotal role in rewiring your brain and can save you from future suicidal thoughts altogether.
Yeah.
Change your brain to change your life, as Dr. Amen says in his book and does all the time.
So you brought up a point that a lot of people don't know about, which is 988. And I know what 988 is, but can you tell people what 988 is and what that's for?
Yeah. So originally it was 1-800-273-8255 TAVR or 1-800-273 1-800-273-TALK, which was a national suicide prevention lifeline led by my good buddy Dr. John Draper. And now it's 988, which a bunch of suicide prevention activists and legislators fought to make into law, my wife and I included. And 988 is the three-digit number for crisis care, mobile crisis unit calls, or suicidal ideation calls. And so you get to the 988 number or crisis lifeline or text line, and there's people at the other end of that are going to do their damnedest to make sure you don't take your life. Or if you're in crisis of any other kind, they can help guide you to a safe place. They're incredible.
So 988 is a way better number to call than 911 unless you need an immediate response. So 988 is for mental health crisis line.
Or mental health crisis. Yeah.
So it's a lot less threatening. So
we don't want to forget that you can also text home or you can text CNQR, which stands for Conquer Your Pain, to 741-741, the crisis text line. Both of those, both of those are two different divisions, but they work tirelessly to make sure people stay alive.
And 741-741, they'll text you back.
They'll
So
text you
you
back.
can't text
Yeah.
988, but you can text 741-741.
You can now text 988 too.
Oh, you
They're two
can.
separate companies. Yeah,
Oh, nice.
you can
Nice.
text both.
Nice. So, tell me about life now. What do you do for fun? I see Batman behind you. Who's your favorite comic book character? Like, what's Kevin do when he's not speaking, and what do you
Oh,
do? Yeah.
you're in my DC cave right now. I have a
Nice.
Marvel cave upstairs, so
Okay. You got it
you know
separated out.
that's separated out. They don't want to be next to each other. They might burst into flames.
Yeah.
But no, I've always loved comics. I've collected for 30 years. I have a 30-year comic book collection, and I just started filming a docu series called Issues: Comics and Mental Health, making the connection between comic book heroes' journey stories and villain stories to the flaws in all of the characters and their connection to brain and mental health struggles, issues, challenges, or diseases or diagnoses. And it's going to be an incredible series. We just interviewed our first guest, Paul Jenkins, who created The Sentry for
Oh, wow.
Marvel. He was just the consulting producer on the movie Thunderbolts. So we talk about that, and we talk about his career in comic books and film. He graduated with a film degree years ago. His initial push was to go into film, go from film school into making films, which he's done. But he haphazardly got into comic books, and he's written some of the most prolific stories in the history of comics. We had to start with him because he's one of the best. And his stories, every one of them relates deeply to his lived experience and the things he went through and the challenges he faced as a child, who'd been abandoned by his parents in some way. So, very powerful stories that he's given to the light of, like Wolverine and the Incredible Hulk and the Sentry, but they all come from his life stories.
Oh,
It's just
wow.
the conversation we have with Paul is next level. I'm really excited about this docu series, and we're going to be putting it out very soon. It's going to be beautiful. So, issues, comics, and mental health is my big kind of hobby work right now. So,
Nice. I love it. Okay, I have two more questions for you. One, I want to back up to something you said earlier about mental health and that the stigma around that word. And I'm always stuck there because I try to describe it. It's like we all have mental health, just like we all have physical health. It's just where on the spectrum are we? Are we working out? Are we eating right? That determines our physical health. And for me, mental health is like, where are we? What are we doing to keep ourselves grounded, to keep ourselves mindful, things of that nature. What you said another term for it earlier, and I wanted to kind of talk about that and explore that and just the stigma around that word. So,
yeah, so I look at this and I really have this strong feeling about it. It's brain health. It's brain pain. I said this earlier, your brain is an organ, just like every other organ in the body, and it too can become diseased. The more we normalize quote unquote mental health as brain health, the more we stay away from this kind of fictitious world of the ether of mental, the
yeah,
unreal, the invisible, the untouchable. It doesn't really exist. But brain health does. Everyone has a brain and everyone has to take care of it. And when you look at what people do when someone has liver, heart, lung, or kidney disease, a cancer of any other organ below the neck, what happens to the people around them? They bring flowers and teddy bears and cards and compassion and love and empathy to the hospital. But Chris, what the hell happens the first time you end up in a psych ward
yeah.
or in rehab? Who comes to see you?
Only the people that are very close to you. Yeah,
Only very
mom and
few people,
dad, and
Chris. Very,
yeah,
very
yeah,
few people in your circle.
yeah.
Where if you had gone in for liver failure or for kidney failure, not due to addiction, or if you had gone in for heart disease or a heart attack, everybody shows up. And so we need to switch the language to brain health and even that word stigma. I hate that word.
Yeah.
They didn't call racism, bigotry, and hatred stigma. They called it racism, bigotry, and hatred, and prejudice. And prejudice. Let's call it what it is to those who have brain health issues or mental health issues. It's discrimination. It's pure and simple. Those who have struggled mentally over the course of the world's history have been treated differently. Us versus them. They're crazy. They're lunatics. They belong in a loony bin. You've heard that language, right?
Sure.
Okay. So let's reverse this and go back. Forget the word stigma. It's too light. And the word stigma stigmatizes itself. Every campaign talks about erasing the stigma. It's driving me bananas. There's even studies that say it should be retired. It's discrimination. Let's treat it as such. Let's overcome it as a society.
Yeah. I love that.
When entire cultures or groups of people look at brain health disease and say you're crazy and don't address the issue, or they say pray it away. Look, I'm a man of God. I have faith in Jesus Christ. He saved my life that day. But I can't just pray away my brain disease. I got to do the work. And part of that is prayer. Part of that are my daily prayers that I give up every day in the morning, in the afternoon, and at night with my wife. That's a part of it. My faith is a huge part of my healing, but it's not the answer. It's a answer.
Yeah, it's
It's
part
a
of it.
part.
Yeah, it's part of it. There's a lot of, my experience in church, and there's a lot of truth to that. Just pray your addiction away, or just pray your, you know,
Yeah.
and God will take care of it. And I talked to a pastor one time, and he showed me in James where it says faith without works is dead. And so doing the work is definitely part of
Yeah.
my faith as
Yeah.
well.
Faith, I like that. Faith
Yeah,
without work. You
yeah,
have to have the faith,
yeah,
but you've got to do the work. You got to do the work.
absolutely,
Hard work.
absolutely.
Nothing good ever came without it. But once you do that hard work, once you put in the time, you earn it. You earn your success. You earn your days of sobriety. You earn your days of brain wellness. And that's something that no one can take away from you.
Yeah,
No one. You
yeah,
know, that's something you can take pride in.
yeah. So, what's your message to somebody that your overall message to somebody that's out there struggling, doesn't know what to do, doesn't know where to turn? And I know you've talked about that to open up, but what would you just tell them? Like, what's your message to that person that may be watching this, may see this on my Instagram or your Instagram, and it's just like, man, I just don't know where to start and what to do. What's your message to that person?
This is a bit biased, but I got to say it. Get the book, The Art of Wellness: How to Find, Live, and Stay Mentally Fit. Read it from back cover to cover. Start writing in the wellness journal and track your wellness for 30 days in the book. Take it off the book and put it in a journal after that. Do it from now on. You have to save yourself. No one's coming to save you. Put in the time, energy, effort, and hard work for things to change. I've laid out the groundwork. I've built the roadmap. I've built the routine. It's all there. Take it. It's yours.
Love it. Well, Kevin, I appreciate you coming on, man. This has been awesome for me. Thank you. And
Thank
I
you.
look forward to meeting you in person when you come back out to California with Margaret and hanging out.
Can't wait
So,
to see you.
yeah.
Let's do it.
All right, man. Thanks.